and Gary has more. Gary?
The report we get, Jan, is that it was a stuck throttle, and I can't imagine anything other than fire that would be a bigger nightmare for a race driver. Mansell is now engaged. The clutch is rolled away. He'll go back out to try it again.
Well, that confirms something. I thought that they were well forward of the shock absorbers. A stuck throttle, my goodness. Now, let's take a look at Robbie Gordon's situation. That's what set up this yellow flag here, the second one of the day. Look at Gordon's right front tire. Just suddenly, bam, and look at him, hold on to it.
And remember, this is along the front straight here. There was only a gentle curve. If that had happened, what's the explosion? Bang, right there, explodes and takes the cap almost all the way off that tire. That was a one-way trip to the concrete wall for Robbie Gordon if he was in turns 1 or 3.
Watch that right front. And when it lets go, he very gently keeps the car on line. You can't touch the brakes or anything at that point.
You have to use finesse. Right as he goes by our booth, just watch.
And what it has managed to do is cause some damage to that steering arm in the front. You can see it bent there, Jan Beekes.
Well, what we're trying to take a look at here is the tire that actually blew. You can see it blew to smithereens, and obviously they're trying to get that tire away as quickly as possible because they want to get it back to Goodyear. There's a couple reasons why they want to take that away. Obviously, it's not great advertising, but also these tires are very secret. They check every tire in and every tire out because they're obviously anticipating Firestone coming here. Gary has more up on pit lane. Gary?
And Nigel Mansell had come back in after one lap. He goes back out. What they've done is to try to get to the throttle cable in a couple of different areas, or the linkage, we should say, and they got it engaged, and then they sprayed it with a lubricant, trying to make sure that it functions properly. Mansell back out now, and we'll get his next test as he goes toward turns 1 and 2.
In the meantime, the Walker Racing team is going to work on that right front steering link on Robbie Gordon's car. Apparently, it was bent too much, and they're changing it now.
Thankfully, they elected to change that because with the fatigue levels that you have here, that was already bent and stressed and strained, so a new one is so much better.
The Goodyear blimp Spirit of Akron is floating overhead, providing aerial views of the Marlboro 500. The Goodyear blimp has been flying over major events for 61 years. We are under yellow here on the 28th lap. The yellow came out when Robbie Gordon had his problem with that blown tire. They're checking the course totally for debris. And Michael Andretti, after the stops, picks up the lead. Back at the Marlboro 500 at Michigan International as the PPG pace car leads the field around. They begin to pick up the speed. Derek, what could have happened to that tire? The third car, by the way, here is the leader, Michael Andretti, when they come back to green.
We have had an unusual number of punctures this weekend, and I went over to Goodyear yesterday, and most of them are caused by debris on the racetrack. Bozell comes down the inside, has a little look at Michael. But most of the tire cuts are caused by the cars picking up debris on the racetrack. Believe it or not, the sweeper was at one time, and it dropped one of its bristles, which punctured a tire. So the sweeper out there trying to clean the track, in fact, created a small piece of debris. But we are in a fight right here with Bozell and Michael.
Raul Bozell charges on Michael Andretti. Mario Andretti runs in third. Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. are up running fourth and fifth now. But here is the fight, and it's for the lead. Two distinctly different lines here, two different chassis.
Michael, another driver who likes that high line during qualifying. Although he wasn't on the pole, he was absolutely flat out all the way around. He said what he liked about this car most of all was its handling on full tanks in race conditions, and Tracy is in the pit lane.
Paul Tracy, remember, he overran his pit earlier. He's back in the pit lane again. He has not been handling well, was running in 15th position when he headed down into the pits. Michael Andretti, the only two-time winner here, is the Penske team working on Paul Tracy's car. And again, it's something in the front end. They're a little higher up, working in that shock absorber area.
You stress and you strain everything so much on these race cars. Millions of dollars go into the preparation, and something small, which is probably what happened to Tracy, suddenly calls an end to your day.
Well, another example of that. Mike Groff has had a clutch problem. He is out of the run. So So both of the Ray Hall Hogan cars, both of the Honda power plants, are out of the race.
Back straight, almost 240 miles an hour and flat into 3.
Update on Paul Tracy's problem, Gary Gerald.
Paulie complaining of a problem that the car doesn't feel right at the front, and the reason being he hit a wheel when he came in on one of those pit attempts. I'm not sure it was the one where he missed, which may have been a reason he missed, or if it was the later routine stop, but he did strike a wheel, and he says the front end just doesn't feel right. He's not comfortable at speed out here. The crew is checking, they're shaking their head. I don't think they found a specific problem thus far. Now they're calling for a full 4-tire wheel change.
Battle for 5th. Emerson Fittipaldi, Adrian Fernandez closing. This young driver, Fernandez, is looking very strong. How would you like to take on somebody like Fittipaldi? The first track that he won on, and you're new to this surface.
And look at this, in the draft under Emerson, slingshots by. They both have the Ilmor D engine, phase 3, but Fernandez blows by the Penske.
I'll tell you what, he almost misjudged that. That was real close when he darted out. He got the toe off of Fittipaldi's car and down the backstretch, looking very solid. That's Fernandez into 5th place.
Great run for Fernandez. Very big name in Mexico, but Mansell is still in deep trouble, and Jan Beekes is there.
Well, the one thing I can tell you, Derek, is that they had him shut down the engine. That means they're going to make a big change here. You can see Tom Wertz trying to get down inside there to get to the throttle area like Gary was telling us about. They're also going to take off the engine cover because they have to look at this cable both on the front and the rear. We don't know if it's a linkage, we don't know if it's cable, but right now this crew has both ends covered.
I don't think I'd like to try any place with the throttle sticking. Here it might be an advantage, though. Just lock it down and hold on. Pit stops might be a little difficult.
Exactly. It scares you too much. But Mansell's chances of winning 2 in a row are now over. It becomes a long, laborious day for him because, remember, he does not like this racetrack, particularly turn 4. In fact, Friday, he walked away from his car, would not run it in the last session. And this morning, he only ran a short number of laps because he just doesn't like it here.
12 car, Jacques Villeneuve now behind Fittipaldi. Scott Goodyear lined up behind him. Villeneuve running in 7th position. Young rookie with such a great job at the Indianapolis 500. Rookie of the year there, leads in the points for the IndyCar Rookie of the Year. And he closes on Fittipaldi. Now, is that an indication of some strategy on Fittipaldi's part? Second guy that we've seen be able to close in?
It might be an indication, as we watch a quick glimpse of Scott Goodyear, it might be an indication that Emerson, the changes he made in the last pit stop, he doesn't like them as we go back to our battle for second place. Again, it's Mario and Bozell.
Boisel currently in second, Mario third. Boisel has been in the thick of the fight the entire day. Tracy just ahead there, shaking his car down. He sees the faster cars coming. But he tends to stay with him, so maybe his problem has been repaired. Update on Nigel Mansell, Jan.
Well, the Cosworth engineers have found the problem with the Ford power plant. It turns out they took the pop-off valve off. They went down inside the engine, and there's actually a butterfly inside the engine that's stuck. They're trying to spray some fluid in there and actually use the wood part of a hammer to try and close it. Oh, right now they get the signal. Nigel's day is over. They cannot fix it here.
So powerful here a year ago, made his strong charge from the 28th lap on to the finish. A key ingredient in his championship and his first and only 500 win. But Nigel Mansell, the defending IndyCar champion, climbs out of his car and sits down, I think just thankful that he's got all of his parts with him. Nigel Mansell, an early retiree. He's with Jan Beekes.
Nigel, that was a very scary moment for you. The throttle stuck open, did it?
That's the scariest moment I've had in my whole career. I mean, we're doing 240 in the slipstream going down into 1, and the throttle just stuck wide open, and I had to jam the brakes on and dip the clutch and try and get around the corner. And I was trying to do that for a few laps, but there's no way. And the boys have done a fantastic job all weekend, and Newman Haas team's run real well. And as you can see, we're in the lead and the car was running fantastic. And then just one lap, then it just stuck open like a switch.
Nigel, tell us, try to describe for us how tough it is physically out there for you.
It's bad enough. You're pulling a lot of lateral G. We're averaging 227 on full tanks. And you need the throttle control in the corners to balance the car. And when it sticks wide open and, you got to try and get around the corner, I tell you, it's not nice.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you.
Back on board, Robbie Gordon now. Remember, he had his problem. He's trying to carve his way up through the field, but he has a long drive ahead. Still, he's running at speed with the leaders, so it gets us a good idea from the Ford Electronics of exactly what the performance of this car is.
Watch the speed climb. 231.3. Just off the throttle to balance it a little bit. That's what Mansell couldn't do. So he was on a direction towards the concrete wall when he got that scare. But Mansell mentioned G-forces, lateral Gs. They pull almost 4 Gs lateral, that's sideways Gs. But the banking creates almost 20 vertical Gs downwards, such is the force. What does that mean? Well, it means 20 times the weight of the car, which is 1,500 pounds, is acting downwards. That is the type of load the driver must absorb here for 500 miles.
Robbie Gordon is running in 14th, a lap behind the leader, as Raul Boisel has to work his way through traffic with Mario Andretti still very much in pursuit.
Mario, the master of 500-mile races, so many times, so many years he's been in them, hasn't won many, but he knows to stay in touch, because you have to get 450 miles safely under your belt before you really think about a sprint. And he changes his line and comes way down low under Dominic Dobson, and then tries to make a swoop on Fabi.
Ooh, a lot of traffic ahead. Dobson, Fabi just ahead of him. He comes down low. He really has to judge now. Jimmy Vasser, the Conseco car, is in the pits. This would be unscheduled as well. Started off the season very strong. Look at the back end. Something wrong there. Gearbox, engine.
Something smoky. Vasser was one of those drivers who experienced the rear suspension failure on the Reynard, and it did give him a bit of a jolt, which took him a few laps to get back up to speed from. But he was running in a good 10th place, but obviously it's all come to naught for Vasser.
With the yellow, our average speed of the race was dropped off to 183.1 miles an hour, as Jimmy Vasser looks at the mount that could carry him no further than the 50th lap. The leader, Michael Andretti, now working lap 51. Boy, look at the heat pouring off those brakes.
Serious overheating. Can't speculate what that could be. Brakes binding. Outside drive shaft gone too dry, which obviously it will only break if you don't stop or get forced to make a stop.
Mario Andretti back working his high line, temporarily out of contact in his battle with Raul Boisel. That's Marco Greco sitting just ahead of him. And he's got Marco sitting there. He's got to figure out with these slower cars, where is the best place to pass, both in terms of high or low, but how do I pace myself into the pass?
And again, you have to have confidence that the driver you're passing sees you. Now, Greco has taken the low line. Mario followed him for almost a full lap and then moves to the high line. But veterans will tell the new guys, never, ever change your line. Let us do the work, let us make the pass.
And there's what Mario lost to Raul Boisel in having to handle up those slower cars. It's not necessarily logical that Raul Boisel got through them in the same time. He may have encountered them at an entirely different part of the race course.